So let's start with the first question. How can you confirm that a recipe online that indicates that is validated has actually gone through all of the testing study?
A great question. I was talking about canning pickled green beans 2 days ago, and the audience had the same exact question. So there's no way for us to just finding a recipe online anywhere, Facebook, Instagram, whatever is the platform. There is no way for us just to look at a recipe and say, yes, it was validated. Yes, there was rigorous testing done to it. The best way for knowing that recipe has researched behind it, I would suggest you to go to a university that does research, USDA as well. So any type of research-based institution that is conducting. So extension is a great way of finding recipes. The National Center for Home Food Preservation, we have many recipes as well. The USDA. And so those are reputable sources, and we know that research has been done behind those recipes. And so it's just unfortunate that we can't really tell just by looking at a recipe if you found it anywhere beyond the research setting or extension or USDA to know if that recipe was developed in a research manner, thinking about the worst case scenario and really taking into consideration all the factors that go into.
Great, thank you so much. And we have other question. Has there been research done or will be done in the future of 1PC lids?
Of what? Sorry.
1PC lids. Let me type it in the chat.
I'm not sure.
One piece lid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. I thought I was trying to think that as a food, so I was trying to figure out what food you were talking about. Yes, one piece lid. We have not done any, and I say we since I can find literature on research on one piece lid as far as the safety of it. I know we have a publication on that was done many years ago on acid foods. If you want to use, for example, containers that do have the twist cap or the one piece lid, acid foods are okay to do. However, the rate of having the seals, not sealing, having failure in the seals is higher because that has been used already. Or, if you buy a new one, maybe you have more luck, but we don't really recommend just because we don't have as much research on the one piece lid. And we know that if you use reused one piece lids for acid food products, you have a higher chance of having a fail sealing on the jar. And so there's a lot of hard work and time that goes into canning. And so no one wants to go through that process and then at the end having products that they didn't seal, and then you have to store it in the fridge or you have to restart over depending on the product. You cannot even reprocess it. So if you can avoid it, I would say avoid it. Stick with the two-piece lid. We have lots of information there, and so that's probably the safest way to go.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question. Is there a plan to recertify steam canners?
So I don't think there's a plan right now, at least I'm not aware, from other institutions as well. There was research done at University of Wisconsin in partnership with the National Center, and that was published in 2015. There's two models that were used to validate recipes, and there are some boundaries on what you can use and how you can use steam canners for acid and acidified products. And so University of Wisconsin has a really great publication on that. So if you haven't seen that, I can share later as well. But it talks about some of the limitations of using steam canners. But I am not aware of more research with steam canners.
We have other question. What are your thoughts on recipes from companies such as Bernardine? There are no studies that back up their recipes on their websites.
So that's a hard question. There are some companies that we work with, meaning that we have NDAs with, and they share their research, they share their data with us so we can see. And we have a very open communication channel that we talk very frequently. So in that case, I would feel more comfortable if I'm seeing the data, if I see the process that is behind and they're sharing the data, the raw data with us, and we can look at that. I feel more comfortable saying, yes, this is good. We, you know, we trust this source. Other companies, unfortunately we can't really say either way because we haven't seen any data, we haven't seen any process and what is the research that they do behind scenes to ensure that that recipe is safe. So I don't know if this answers the question. This is a hard question, but it really depends if we are able to look at the processes, if we're able to look at the data and have open channels of communication to ensure we're all on the same page.
Thank you. We have more questions. What do you recommend for the use of electric pressure cannons such as the Presto brand?
As of now, we don't have data or research that would back in either way. So we can't really say if it works or if it doesn't work. We are working, we have had conversations with Presto, even though we are not in the business of validating equipment. That's not what we're, we don't want to be known because we do that. But in this case specifically, the interest is so high and everybody wants to know and wants to use the product that we have had conversations with Presto Foundation to figure out if we can do research on this product. But unfortunately, because of how the product is developed, if you have seen it, there is a mix of metal and plastic on the same product. And if you remember from the photo I showed you earlier, the canner that we use to do the research, we have to modify it. We have to weld into a piece of metal. And if you have plastic and metal, plastic would just be destroyed. So that wouldn't be a fair testing. So if we destroy the equipment, then we, it doesn't make sense for us to test. So now we are looking into wireless thermocouples. So everything that I showed you today was wire thermocouples, and that's the gold standard for home canning. But there's also wireless technology that is used for this type of research. But the way that the wireless technology is set up and the space between closing the lid and the bottom part of the canner where the jar is sitting at is not high enough. So if we use the wireless technology the way it is right now, we can't close the lid. If we try to adapt the canner to have a packing gland like traditionally, we will destroy the equipment. So we are just running into some roadblocks on how we can do this research. So we are waiting for a thermocouple that is developed. They're just the company that has developed it is just doing some more validation of that thermocouple. That is basically, it has a little wire that hangs on the side and we can close the lid. So we are waiting for that, but we would love to look into that if we have the opportunity and hopefully have some answers and some guidance. But as of now, unfortunately, I cannot say anything either way because we just don't know. We don't have the data.
Thank you. So we have more questions. We have a question from Karen. Same with lots of cookbooks that have recipes from home canning. Many commercial operators have been using a recipe for low acidity food for 20 years, and it's in a cookbook that does not have the studies in the book. So how do we know it's validated?
That is a great question. Again, figuring out where the recipes come from and as crops have evolved over the years. So I don't know if you have seen in the past, a long time ago, tomatoes was considered a acid food product because things have evolved in the agronomic side of things. The crops have been changed for a variety of reasons, such as you want to have more yield or you want something sweeter, like this fruit needs to be sweeter, whatever is the case, that it has changed. There's some unintended consequences that come with changing crops, such as the pH. So now tomatoes, they are borderline. Some of them are above 4.85. And so now we add acid to the tomato recipes because they're no longer considered acid food products. And so as crops evolve, as things evolve, even though canning is a very established, has a very solid foundation, the produce has changed, and so we need to be able to continue to follow as things evolve in the agriculture side of things. We need to be able to follow those, and if there is something that has changed drastically, like the pH, we need to be able to address that and retest that recipe. And cookbooks that are out there, I unfortunately don't know what is their process of validating recipe or, going over a certain timeline. Recipes are looked at every 5 years or every 10 years, whatever is their process. I just don't know what they would do with their cookbooks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have time for our last question. Do you have an NDA to see Ball's recipe research? Isn't Bernardine just Ball in Canada?
So the first part of the question I can answer. Yes, we do have an NDA with Newell Brands here in the United States, and they do share their process, they do share the data. So we have a very good open channel of communication between research on what we are doing, what they are doing, looking at data. So yes, we do have an open channel there. So that's great because that gives us confidence to know that things are done right, and the process is very rigorous for the research. Bernardine, just ball in Canada. I am not 100% sure if that is correct. Maybe. I don't want to say something and then later on is not true. But in the US, we do have an NDA with Newell Brands, which is the brand that purchased Ball. And yeah, so I need to do some research on that to see if Bernardine is part of Ball in Canada. It could be.
Thank you. And we also have another question. How can we improve communication with consumer about the risk of these invalidated recipes?
That's an excellent question. I think there's different ways of connecting with consumers. One of the things that I've learned based on my international experience and research, we do not want to come in and discount their culture, their tradition, and their beliefs. That's the fastest way to lose somebody, is to just say everything that you're doing is wrong. This is what you do it right? Be that person that comes in and tell them they're doing everything wrong. So I think there's a balance of communicating and understanding where they're coming from, and how they have done things over the years, and also explaining in a way that you can empathize where they're coming from, and sharing also the research side of things, not in a way that is insulting to them, not in a way that you are imposing this on them, but acknowledging that yes, there are traditions, there are cultures around the world, and there are beliefs that you do certain things and you have done certain things for so many years. If that is present, that's very valid. Research is also very valid, and research has evolved over the years. And so back then, some of those things that we did, they were fine back then. We didn't know better. Things evolved, technology evolved, we learned, and now we're doing things a little bit differently. And so I think, in my opinion, how you communicate with the consumer and how that message is shared. I say I'm not the food safety police. I don't want to be the food safety police. I'm here to provide research-based information. And so once you have that information, then you can make the decision for you and your family, what is best for you. Think, keeping in mind public health outcomes that are related to this type of food preservation method. And so I think that's, I guess, my main point. I always try to understand where people are coming from, what is their background, and how I can connect with them in a way that they will listen to me and not completely, immediately shut down because I'm coming in and saying, well, this is not how you should do it. And so, and then of course, many ways of communicating out there, social media, extension, consumer education conferences, things like that. Those are all great space to share information. And I say we, the National Center for Home Preservation, we do not have social media account, but we know that a lot of our consumers and a lot of our customers, they come from mainly Facebook. And so once we have the infrastructure and the means to have an active social media account that could be routinely, posting things and connecting with people, probably Facebook is where we're going to go. But right now we don't have any of those means. But